Welcome to the Academic Warriors presentation. All right, let's get into it. Today, we're going to unravel a really important and kind of tricky piece of South African tax law.
Okay, so let me ask you something. Have you ever wondered if you can be taxed on money you haven't even gotten yet? Like seriously, imagine you make a huge sale, you're feeling great, but you only got paid a little bit of it up front. Can the taxman really come knocking for his share of the whole amount, even the cash that's not in your bank? It sounds kind of crazy, right? Well, believe it or not, that's the big question we're tackling today.
All right, so let's set the scene. Our main character for today is a wine farmer, a fella by the name of Mr. Lategan. And one year, he makes this absolutely massive wine sale. You think it's time to pop the corks and celebrate, right? Well, not so fast, because this one deal, oh man, it's about to cause a whole lot of trouble.
So here's the deal. Literally, Mr. Lategan sells his wine. He gets some of the cash in rands right away in that tax year. But the rest of the money, that's coming later in installments in the next tax year. Seems simple enough, doesn't it? But you guessed it, that little detail, getting paid later, is where the whole problem starts.
And now, every good story needs a villain, right? Well, cue the dramatic music. Here comes SARS, the South African Revenue Service. Of course, they get wind of Mr. Lategan's big payday, and you know what happens next. They see all those zeros and they're like, hold on a minute, we want a piece of that action.
And this is the heart of the fight right here. You've got Mr. Lategan on one side saying, hey, look, it's simple. I should only pay tax on the cash I actually have in my hand this year. Makes sense, right? But then you have SARS on the other side, shaking their heads and saying, nope, sorry, you earned the right to that future money this year, so you owe us tax on the full sale price now.
So you've got two totally different viewpoints. What happens next? You guessed it, they're heading to court. Mr. Lategan decides to take on SARS, and this showdown is going to become a legendary case that basically redefines what income even means in South Africa.
So the whole case really boiled down to one little word, amount. What does amount actually mean in the definition of gross income? The court came back with a big answer. They said, look, amount isn't just the cash in your pocket. It's way bigger than that. It's any kind of property you've earned that has a money value, and that includes having the right to get paid later.
Yeah, check out this exact quote from the case. It says the amount includes every form of property which has a money value. And that was the knockout punch. The court decided that Mr. Lategan's promise of future payments was a type of property that had a value. So boom, it had to be counted as income in the year he made the sale, not when he got the cash.
Okay, but the court wasn't totally heartless. They kind of saw Mr. Lategan's point. You know, making him pay tax on money he doesn't even have yet is a bit rough. So they came up with a middle ground. They said, okay, you have to include it, but not at the full amount. You only have to include the present value of those future payments. Basically, what that future money is worth today. So it's a slightly smaller, discounted number.
So there you have it. The court has spoken. Mr. Lategan has to pay tax, but on the present value. Case closed, story's over, right? Everyone knows the rules now. Well, you might want to buckle up because this story has a plot twist. Just when everyone was getting used to the court's decision, the law itself changed. That's right. Parliament basically looked at what the court said and went, interesting, but we're going to add a little something. They stuck in a special clause called a proviso into the Income Tax Act. And this one little addition, well, it flipped the whole thing on its head.
So let's look at the before and after. On the one hand, you had the court's rule from the Lategan case. You include the present value of the debt, a discounted amount. But then this new proviso comes along and completely changes the game. It says, forget the discount. From now on, you have to include the full face value of the debt. The whole thing. No more discounts.
Okay, so after all that drama, the farmer, SARS, the court, the new law, what's the actual rule for us today? What's the one thing you absolutely positively have to remember for your exams? This is it, guys. The big takeaway. Okay, let's nail this down. First, remember the big idea from the Lategan case. Gross income is not just about cash. It also includes the right to get paid later. That's still true. That principle is rock solid. But, and this is super important, that new proviso changed how we value that right. The new law completely overrides the court's idea about present value. Today, the rule is you must include the full face value of the future payments, the whole shebang, period. This brings us to the final and maybe most important question. If the new law changed the part about the value, why on earth do we still have to study the Lategan case?
I mean, it's old news, right? Well, here's why it's still so important. The Lategan case is what established the massive fundamental idea that a right to get money later is income right now. That core concept is the foundation for everything that came after. The new law just built on top of it. And that, my friends, is why this old farmer's wine problem is still a huge deal in tax law today.